Right, everyone. I think we're ready to begin with Coach Smart. We're going to go straight to questions today. And let's start out with Mike Griffith, and then we'll go to Dean Leahy.
Yeah, thanks, Coach, for doing this. Can you give us an update on the injury front? I guess Christopher Smith, Pickens, any of the other guys maybe you expect to have back for the Florida game?
Yeah, Chris was cleared last game, and we were fortunate to be able to get through the game. The plan was to play him in our dime packages, and he was going to play. He practiced all week, but we didn't get into dime situations, so we ended up not having to play him in the game. So he's, again, cleared to go. He'll be practicing all week and feel good about Chris. George is not cleared yet. He's continuing to progress. He's working really hard. He's able to do more and more each week. You guys have seen him some. He done some workouts, some things pre-game warm-ups and stuff like that, but he is not cleared yet. I think we'll get back. Hopefully, we'll get back Arian. He was really borderline questionable for the game, and ended up not using him. His is just a pain tolerance, and he's a couple of weeks been out, but hopefully he'll be back. Kenny McIntosh is still nursing a hamstring, and hope to get him back, but he is not cleared yet today. Anybody else specifically? Amir Speed is closer to being ready. We think hopefully we'll get him back by Florida week. He's running on his ankle, but not 100% yet.
Kirby, go ahead. Quarterbacks, I was going to say.
Yeah, JT has been able to, his pitch count has kind of increased. He got up to maybe 65, 70 throws yesterday with Ron, pain-free, increasing distance, getting out further and further. I think he get around 40 or 45 yards. Hopefully I'll know more today, because we didn't really practice yesterday. We threw him. He got to throw, but we didn't practice. We did a walk-through, clean-up kind of deal, and we'll know more today, because he's hopefully going to get some quality reps and see what kind of velocity he's got.
Kirby, more than 27 million people have watched Georgia play football this season. Saturday's game with Kentucky was more watched nationally than the Texas-Oklahoma game. Beyond just winning a football game, what do you want people to see when they're watching y'all play on TV, and beyond just winning? And is there anything specific that you're wanting recruits to see while y'all are playing?
Yeah, I want our players to represent our brand the right way. I think it's important how you play the game as much as what you do when you play. And our guys have usually reflected that with toughness and effort, and the energy they play with. Our fans, our stadium is on display when we play at home in front of an audience like that. So much of today's kids care about perception and followers and viewing, and what kind of marketability do they have in the NIL world, that we don't push it and sell it, but certainly these kids have an opportunity to come here and play in front of a lot of people and create a brand for themselves by how they play. We just really gear it towards tough, hard-nosed football and want our teams to represent that. And I think our team this year has really showed toughness, resiliency, all those traits that we talk about. They've shown those, and it's critical to their success and our success that we continue to get better at those things.
Let's go to Chip Towers, and then we'll go to Mark Weiser.
Hi, Coach. Let me bring up the annual refrain about playing the game in Jacksonville. Your feelings on that? Do you still think the negatives outweigh the positives, and what's your general thoughts on it this year?
I haven't even thought about it, Chip, to be honest with you. I don't concern myself with things that I don't control. All I'll ever say is that, the home atmosphere we have is incredible, and the ability to bring recruits in is big. And if I knew every year we would have home games like we've had this year, it probably would be less of an issue, but it's an issue when you're not allowed. You don't have what might be your biggest rival, and you don't have an opportunity to bring official visits in and recruits in every other year, because you wouldn't have it every year anyway. But it certainly is valuable in the time when kids are deciding an early signing date, December, and they're enrolling in January. those are the most critical weekends you can have to get kids on campus. So I stand by the fact that we miss out on one of those opportunities every other year, and everybody else in the country doesn't.
To be clear, you can get them tickets if they want to go, right? Like if somebody recruit wants to go, you can get them a ticket to come see the game.
It's complicated.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Coach.
Hey, Kirby. I want to ask about Scott Cochran. Is he back with the program, and what's his role now? And then I also wanted to ask about Arik Gilbert, how he's doing, and if there's any chance he'll be back this season.
Scott, he's back with us officially and working with us. He's going to be assisting the special teams staff and helping contribute to those guys in an all-field role for the rest of the season. And happy to have him back, and hopefully going to keep him safe and healthy throughout that process and during his recovery process. But we're glad to have his energy, enthusiasm back, and he'll help us on a kind of a off-the-field role there with special teams. And then Reek is not back. He's still continuing his journey and hopefully going to get back. We're communicating with him, and everybody's pulling for him. But I don't know the answer to when or if he'll be back.
All right, Seth Emerson, next question, and then we'll go to Jake Rowe.
Kirby, with the receivers, and it's a weekly, daily kind of thing on where are they, who they come back. At what point are the guys that have been playing, it's hard to take them off the field. You don't just kind of add a receiver who's healthy and plug him into a starting role, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it really just boils down to practice, right? Like the guys that go out and practice and take the reps and perform on the practice field, the guys that go out in the game. So yeah, you don't ever just plug a guy in. You plug a guy in during the week and you give him reps, and whoever gives us the best opportunity to win is who's out on the field, and that comes from practice. And if you can't practice, well, obviously that's hard to do, right? So if you can practice and you're not 100% and you're working your way back, then we're going to play whoever gives us the best opportunity to win. So those guys that are injured are trying their best. They're at rehab each day. They're working to get back, and we're focused on getting the guys we have healthy better. And I want to have more depth at that position, and that's all kind of contingent on those guys returning from injury.
Kirby, I wanted to ask kind of a little bit more about George. I know you have said you don't have a timeline, but you did kind of rule him out earlier on, I think it was this time last week for the Kentucky game. Would you be able to do that for the Florida game? Could you say that he's definitely not going to play against Florida, or is it just like a day-by-day deal?
No, there's a long-term plan there, but I mean, I don't disclose timelines on that kind of stuff. I mean, probably the week of the game we'd know more, but we did a walkthrough yesterday, and he was able to do that and get signals and get calls, and he's done a tremendous job of working in recovery. But Dr. Andrews, Ron Corson, myself, George's parents have all been involved in that conversation, and not something that we're open to share. I just very hopeful that he's able to get back 100%. That's our concern.
Okay, question from Jed May, and then we'll go to Tyler Griffith.
Yeah, Coach, you've talked a lot about, especially after the game, about, defensive meetings being made fun and keeping guys engaged, all that kind of stuff. I was just wondering if y'all have any plans to expand that kind of thing, to more of a team-wide thing, during the bye week to, keep guys engaged and energized and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it is a team-wide thing. I mean, the questions were asked specifically about the defense, but it's not any different for the team meetings, the special teams meetings, and the offensive meetings. They have their different ways of keeping things moving, keeping things interesting. I think all our coaches are creative teachers. I know when I get in front of the team, I don't want to say the same thing every day. I want to have a different theme or maybe a movie clip or a message. And it's the same way with special teams and Monken and the offensive coaches. So it's not, it permeates the organization because it has to. If you don't, you'll lose these kids. So it's just a method of teaching. I think the specific questions were more about the nuggets and the things like that we do defensively. That pertain to defense.
Yeah, just following back up on the defense, what would you say is the biggest difference in between last year and this year?
we're playing some different defenses. We're playing a little less of some things we played traditionally. We're certainly much more inexperienced on the back end. Is one of the big differences, and it's allowed us to simplify some things to help. But we're also that much more experienced in the front seven because most of those guys are back, and the biggest difference probably is the experience of the front seven this year versus last year.
All right, next question from Vance Levy, and then we'll go to Palmer Thomas.
Kirby, obviously the off week gives you the benefit of healing, but how do you guard against when you're clicking in a lot of phases as the team is? Some would argue playing each week keeps that edge where you want it. How will you use this week to kind of not lose that edge, then going into the actual game week next week?
Well, I don't know that we're playing at our best, right? So we're trying to play better, and there's plenty of things. I mean, we had a 22 or something play drive, a 13 play drive. I mean, defensively, we didn't get off the field in some opportunities, and those long drives, you got to have answers to. You got to improve. Why did you not get off the field? It's everything 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. They had 4 downs. I mean, more people may go for it on 4th down. So when you have 4 downs to get it, you're going to have those kind of situations. Offensively, there's a lot of things we can clean up. So I don't look at it as, worry about losing our edge during this week. I'm trying to sharpen our edge and get better because that's what we've got an opportunity to do. We got a chance to create depth and improve players. And there's not one player on our team that would tell you he doesn't need to improve. And that starts with us as coaches. So we're looking at ourselves, quality control, how we can improve, what we can do better to help our players be successful.
Kirby, you mentioned it there with developing the depth. How much of the bye week is put into, trying to take some guys that maybe haven't played a huge role and seeing what they could do throughout the rest of the season versus developing guys that have already contributed?
Just both. I mean, we never go out to practice and say we're doing one or the other, right? That would be foolish. I mean, we're trying to develop the roster all the time. There's defensive players on the scout team we're trying to develop. And, for instance, Jordan Davis, his freshman year, at this time, I don't know that he had played very much of a role. And he went into the Florida game, if you remember, and really came on the scene after a week off of practice. I guess it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, however many years ago it was, that he came on the scene and played in that game. And we're using examples like that to highlight that no matter where you are now, this is an opportunity to change that.
All right, let's get next question from Connor Riley, and then we'll go to Steve Hummer.
Hey, Kirby, in each of the last 3 years, you've had freshman wide receivers who have been able to come in and produce early. What does that say about Cortez Hankton's ability not only to identify those guys in recruiting, but also get them coached up and developed to where they are contributing really early on in their careers?
Does a tremendous job. Number one, evaluation, I think, is the key because, some of those guys haven't been the most high profile, top ranked receiver, but they've gotten better since arriving. I think our system being conducive to freshmen being elite, it's not like it takes you forever to come in and learn the system. So we've been able to have some success with younger receivers, which, has its pitfalls too, because sometimes the older ones don't get it. And in this year's case, it's really been about injuries. It's thrust some other guys to the forefront, whether it be Brock, AD, Ladd, whoever. They've been thrust up there more by injury than anything else. But Cortez does a great job teaching, developing, working on those guys. And we think those guys get a lot of reps in the spring, in AD's case, and also in fall camp. That all those work with the 3s and 2s, which some of those guys were, pays off.
Yeah. Hey, Kirby. I was just wondering if the phrase top ranked Bulldogs or number 1 ranked Bulldogs is ever uttered around the building there. And how have you kind of used the ranking to either dismiss it or to kind of use it to kind of prod the team along?
No, it doesn't get mentioned much. I mean, there's not a lot of time to talk about it. I mean, I think the kids see it when they leave and they hear about it through social media and different media outlets. That's what they see on their phones. So I know they're not oblivious to it. But for us, it hasn't been used for anything other than, what has made us successful. And we've talked about this before. And the kids explain what's made us successful, what they believe has made us successful, because what they believe matters over what I believe. And then, okay, what are our threats? And let's identify what our threats are. And complacency, good being the enemy of great, is something that we talk about a lot, and we don't want those things to affect us. So we're very open about it. We have conversation about it and talk, but outside of that, the ranking doesn't come up much.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Question, Lance McCurley, and then we'll go to Roddy Nabulsi.
Hey, Coach. So what's your schedule like for the rest of the week, and what do you kind of do? I'm sure it's going to be recruiting, but what's your kind of schedule on the players through the next week? When are they off, and are they going to be able to go home? And, what are your weekend plans?
Not sure on my weekend plans. You have to ask my wife that. I'll do whatever she tells me to do. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to practice, get after it. We're going to work on some future opponents. We'll introduce Florida on Thursday. We'll recruit. Some guys will recruit Thursday and Friday. Some will recruit just Friday. And then we're off Saturday, and then we're back at it Sunday as coaches, and the players are back Sunday.
Kirby, you went over a year without being able to have recruits on campus. You had to 13 whatever months until June. You also didn't have the type of year you wanted to last year under COVID. This year, you were able to get recruits on campus starting in June. You've had a noon game with a ton of kids there. You had a 3:30 game with a ton of kids there. You have a number one ranking. Would you compare and contrast recruiting last year versus recruiting this year?
Yeah, it's polar opposites. So just the fact you couldn't be here. I mean, there was no such thing as recruiting last year. It was all by phone and by Zoom. And the kids not being able to experience the games is hard on them. They're having to make decisions to go places without going places. And that's just hard. And this year's been, it seems like pretty much back to normal. If anything, it's heightened because there's the new effect. Like, this is new to so many people. They haven't done it. So your sophomores and juniors are dying to go places, and seniors, it's like their first trip. So it's been heightened, and it certainly has helped that we've had some premier games at home to bring these kids to.
Hey, we've got time for two more questions. We'll let anybody jump in. Go ahead.
Kirby, this is Dean again. Can you go out twice this week or three times if you wanted to recruiting, or is it only once for the head coach this week?
Well, the head coach can use. I can do whatever I need to do or whatever I want to do. We have a certain number of hits that we have, and that's all we have. So we have numbers, and we have those delegated out throughout the year. Where one weekend we might use 5, one weekend we might use 4 or 3. Off weekend we use obviously everybody. We can, but we delegate that based on what games they think it's important I go to versus what games it's important the assistants go to.
Kirby, I wanted to ask you about Trey Scott, and obviously, you guys are, playing really well on the defensive line and have seemingly gotten better every year. Going back, as far as experience and stuff, Trey didn't have a ton of it at that point. He hadn't been doing it for 10, 15 years or anything. What led you to hire him to kind of thrust that kind of trust into a guy like him? And how have you seen him grow as a coach?
Well, he's young, he's energetic, he's one of the best teachers and developers I've ever been around. He pours into his young men. His unit takes a lot of pride in their performance as a unit, and you see it kind of reflect in the way he leads. He's got a great family, great wife. He's a class act. He represents the University of Georgia the right way, and he grew up under one of the legendary defensive line gurus and teachers named Pete Jenkins, and Pete is kind of world renowned for developing coaches. And Trey came up under Pete, and when you get one of Pete's guys, you're going to get a good one. And we've been able to do that. We've been very blessed to have Trey and his family here, and he does a wonderful job recruiting, pushing young men, challenging young men, and developing young men so that when they leave here, they're much better off.
Thank you, Coach Smart.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.